2014 Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 10 GSR. We're powered by a 2-liter inline-4 turbo engine, making 291 horsepower at 6,500 RPM, 300 pound-feet at 4,000 RPM. But this is the 4B11 engine, not the 4G63 that was in the Evolution 1 through 9. And actually, I love that the owner has on his license plate no 4G63. I think that's pretty hilarious. But keep in mind, this car is modified. So he took this on a Mustang dyno and it's pushing out 320 horsepower, 309 pound-feet of torque to the wheels. Quite a big bump over stock. And the reason why the 4B11 versus 4G63 is significant is that the 4G63 were iron blocks that were kind of considered the 4-cylinder equivalent of the 2JZ, if you will. The 4B11 is an aluminum block and not as much headroom in terms of tuning potential. The GSR came with only a 5-speed manual transmission, weighs in right around 3,527 pounds with a wheelbase of 104 inches, strut front, multi-link rear with hydraulic power steering. Yes, even in 2014, hydraulic power steering, not E-Pass. And we've got Brembo 4-piston calipers in the front, 2-piston in the back, and these are the stock 18-inch factory wheels from Enkei. And if you went with the MR, so there's the GSR and the MR had BBS wheels, but I like that these Enkei wheels look very much like the 90s Evo rally cars with those multi-thin spoke design. And we're wrapped in PS4S rubber with a 245 section width, which is the same as stock, because again, we're running the stock wheels. So we had GSR and MR. GSR was really the driver's choice because this was the only way you could get a 5-speed manual transmission. The MR, which was the more expensive, had a dual clutch 6-speed and was also around 70 pounds heavier, largely in part due to that dual clutch transmission. This was the more raw and track focused version of the two that were brought to the US. And we do have Recaro seats from factory that came wrapped in cloth. And funny enough, the final edition Evo did not have Recaros because of safety regulations in 2015 in the US. So that was the one model year that did not have Recaros, but the MR had leather-wrapped Recaros, and this one had the cloth-wrapped Recaros. The GSR also gave you Bilstein shocks and Eibach springs. We, of course, get the active center differential, that's ACD, with active yaw control, AYC, and that ACD is more of a computer-controlled active center differential compared to the STI, which is like manually set by the driver. And here, the computer is going to control this electronically multi-plate hydraulic clutch to vary the torque split dynamically as you drive. And the way they designed it is such that towards corner exit, you send more torque to the rear, you get better exit speeds. Now the AYC active yaw control is only on the rear axle, and it allows you to send up to 100% of the torque being sent to the rear to either the left or the rear wheel. In the front, there's no AYC, but you do have a helical LSD, and that AYC in the back also uses clutch packs with a planetary gear. So overall, a very advanced all-wheel drive system. They're not just looking at traction in the wheels, they're also looking at things like your steering input, your yaw rate, your lateral G-forces, and the wheel speed to then adjust the torque. And it's going to help the car feel more agile and neutral and responsive compared to other all-wheel drive systems. We have static dampers here. If you went with the MR, you would get adaptive dampers. Now, as for mod list, as always, the full mod list is down in the description. We have ETS Intake, ETS upper intercooler pipes, test pipe and V2 exhaust, GrimmSpeed boost control solenoid, DW65C fuel pump, Swift Spec R springs, AEM gauges for both boost and air to fuel ratio. And to house those two gauges, you got the Ortiz dual gauge pod pillar. And first impressions of this interior, it feels, honestly, it feels older than 2014, which makes sense. The Evo 10 did come out several years prior to that. Boost gauge, air to fuel ratio. The main difference of the Evolution versus the regular Lancer is here in the center, you're gonna see this display that's gonna tell us how much torque is being sent to each of the 4 wheels. You'll see that light up as we start driving. The drive modes here, AWC button, tarmac, gravel, snow. We're obviously going to be on tarmac. And I love that the owner put this Billetworks Light Bulb shift knob inspired by the 90s rally cars, because those rally cars, why do they choose white shift knobs? Well, they oftentimes didn't have the windows closed. They just had these nets. So riding on gravel and dirt, it would get really dirty, and having a white shift knob, a lighter colored shift knob, even when it was dirty, would be easier for the driver to then see from their peripheral vision. So I love little details like that. Right off the bat, the seating position is definitely not ideal for a taller driver. You don't have any adjustment with the Recaros on the base in terms of height. You're sitting quite upright, as you would expect for a 4-door like this, but you're also, the steering wheel doesn't telescope out. It's stuck, it only tilts. So I'm feeling like my arms are really spread out and my legs are also kind of cramped. And the way the Recaros are positioned is also not for taller drivers. Remember, a Japanese car, probably more optimized for a Japanese audience, shorter average height. I'm gonna turn traction off. Wow, super short gears. Top of third is where a lot of cars hit top of second. And that engine note very much front and center. There's something about Evos, they just feel a little bit more passionate than some other competitors. Would love to give you guys a comparison against a contemporary WRX STI. If you have one in the Las Vegas area, then reach out. We'll schedule that interview, jabalandcars.com. Line at 7,000 RPM. Oh man, we can really feel that heft though. A lot of body roll, even with these Swift springs. Good ergonomics for heel toe though. Getting a bit of rotation there. Oh wow. Look at this thing just claw for grip. Initial impressions after just a few corners. Definitely a dynamic vehicle. You toss the car in a little bit into the corner with that weight transfer and it will rotate. All-wheel drive system giving you a lot of confidence. Putting the power down with no drama. Hydraulic steering is quite talkative. Getting a lot of communication through the wheel, especially for an all-wheel drive vehicle, which tend to numb the steering communication because you have more of that power going through the front axle, and you get a little bit of corruption there. But here, the hydraulic steering is a bit lighter than I would want, which I guess is more aligned with the contemporaries. But feedback is really better than I was expecting. I like this corner, a bit of that downhill decreasing radius. You can really feel the rear end get light. Shift throws are pretty long, but they have a nice, like, mechanical feel to them. There's a little bit of slop, but definitely a joy to use. Also owns a BRZ, a 2024. Neil actually has fantastic taste in cars. He's got a Corvette, this, and a BRZ. And he says that the BRZ is more fun, primarily due to weight reasons. And I can see that if you want to really toss a car around, the 27 to 2,800 pounds of the BRZ has its advantages. But in my opinion, this is just such a unique driving experience. Revving this thing out to 7,500 RPM. The throttle response is a little bit sluggish. You gotta really jab it when you rev match. You gotta remember it's a turbocharged engine. Oftentimes that's very much par for the course, needing a harder jab than a naturally aspirated engine. Let's give you guys a pull uphill. very much enjoying this driving experience. This car is far more connected than I was anticipating, and I think a lot of Evos tend to have that trait. However, the ergonomics are definitely bothering me here. It is not tall person friendly. I'm 175 pounds, 6'1", and a few things. The shifter is pretty far low. You're like shooting from the hip in a way, right? You're going all the way down here, pretty low compared to the steering wheel. And that's not optimal for ergonomics, right? There's more motion here in the operating room. For those who don't know, I used to do plastic surgery. You want to focus on good ergonomics and economy of movement, meaning the most efficient movement. It reduces fatigue, it improves speed and smoothness, and this is just excess motion just to shift the car. Also, not optimal driving position with the pedals and such being too close. Suspension is actually set up well for street driving. There is a bit of body roll. If I wanted the car to be sharper and more focused, yes, I would go even stiffer. But here we have a pretty good balance of body control and responsiveness while also maintaining comfort. And the body control here is also not nearly as unnerving compared to something like in an ND Miata, where you have that rear wheel drive and you want to get the tail out, and then that body roll just delays all of your inputs. Here, because you have the all-wheel drive system, body roll is a little bit more tolerable because you have that confidence that the all-wheel drive system is not going to let you get too far out of shape. With this medium firmness suspension, we also don't have the sharpest front end. There's a little bit of a delay from the steering input for it to set, bite, and turn. But I do think it is congruent with the rest of the vehicle. The added power, I feel, is very much welcome because the car is on the heavier side. I imagine stock, it would feel a little bit sluggish. There we go. Getting these heel toes right with a little bit more of a jab. Oh, dude. The way you can feel the car with that yaw, it just feels so well controlled. Oh, man. This is such a unique experience. I can't remember a time I've experienced this before. You get such... So a lot of all-wheel drive cars will feel extra planted as you hit the corners. This car will give you a little bit of slip, a little bit of that yaw, and with this advanced, this AWC system, and all the computer intervention and calculation, it's giving you just a little bit of slip, enough for you to have fun, get the tail out, and as you get on the throttle and as you dance with the car, it doesn't just pull you forward, it actually gives you some rotation too. This is such a unique driving experience. And you combine that with the suspension that gives a lot of body roll. It's entertaining, guys. In terms of NVH and feedback, I feel like this hits a good balance point. A lot of cars from this era, from the 2000s and 2010s, tend to strike a decent balance whereby you have nice levels of communication through the wheel and even through the chassis. You can really feel each of the corners of the wheels, and it's not too punishing. This car is definitely very street focused. There is a bit more turbo lag compared to modern vehicles, even when you're past that boost threshold. We're here at 5K. Get on the throttle, it takes a half second to a second to really build. Brakes also have this very natural feel to them. They're not overly bitey or overly firm. A lot of the inputs here, they're quite congruent. They feel sporty without anything being overly firm, overly harsh, overly race car. Engine does have more of that turbocharged character, which I think for a car like this is very fitting. The more Evos I drive, this is now the third Evo, the more Evos I drive, the more I fall in love with them. I think these are such unique vehicles. Big shout out to the owner, Neil, for letting me review his Evo 10. My friends, if you want your car reviewed, visit us on jabalandcars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.